Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode in a brand new season 5 of our talk show Cellar Talks. And in the meanwhile we've been busy, so we had a special series of and a tour through Spain. But now we're back with our regular season 5, and our first guest is from Franciacorta. So we're going to the north of Italy, and we're waiting for Bellavista Winery to join us. So while you guys are here, stay tuned, and Ettore will be joining us in a few minutes. And today we're going to talk about Franciacorta, so north of Italy, sparkling wines. It's nice because actually the second episode about sparkling wines after our first one about the Netherlands. Today we're going to go into a more famous region, I would say. And let's see if we can get Bellavista already in the show. In the meanwhile, if you're enjoying a glass of wine, let us know what you're drinking. And for those who are watching, we are also in the midst of putting season 3 podcast, so you can also enjoy season 3 per podcast starting this week with episode 1, and we'll have a new one every week. So let's see if we can get Ettore online. Yes, I can see you. Good evening.
Hello. Let me position. You choose the best position. If it's this one.
The best one is you, and then the second best one is the bottle of Bellavista.
Right. Okay, let me just position. There it is. Look at that.
So we have both now. That's good. Thank you, Ettore. Welcome and welcome in the show tonight.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we were very pleased because I was already explaining to the people today we're going to talk about sparkling wine again. And it's been a while, actually. In all the episodes we only had one episode about sparkling wine, and that was a Dutch sparkling wine, so completely different.
Sparkling wine.
Yeah.
Okay, let's add a little bit more sunshine here.
Yeah. But that was really good. But today, obviously, we're going to go to a region that is very famous for sparkling wine, Franciacorta. And Bellavista, I dare to say, is one of the leading wineries there. And you work for Bellavista, so maybe we start. I will just start with asking everybody if they have a question to put it either in the chat or put it in the question mark box. There is a question mark box, so they can enter the questions there and the bottom. And if you are curious about what we're going to drink before we go into the introduction, today we are drinking one of the Bellavista wines, of course. And actually, it's my favorite. I don't know about yours, Ettore, but we'll have to hear from you.
Well, this one tickles me all the time. I have to admit, it's not my favorite, but this one does the job every day.
You could tell us later what you like.
Okay,
but this one is a very interesting one, and we picked it because it's a well-known one.
It's the most important one, so this one has to be.
The Grande Cuvée, Allemaal Brut. That's the name of the one that we're drinking tonight. So, having that said, Ettore, maybe introduction from your side. Who are you? And then we'll go into the introduction of Bellavista.
Okay. My name is Ettore. I've been working for the last 20 odd years for the Moretti family, who owns 6 wineries around Italy. Currently, I'm the export manager for the Northern European countries, so I'm in charge with UK, Benelux, and the Scandinavian market for the 6 winery in their portfolio. Previously, I was based in Tuscany in one of their wineries called Petra, and I was there for about 13 years. Yeah, so my job is also doing this, but, keep in touch with all the importers of different countries in my perimeter. Now we've got Vinitaly coming up, so that's a big appointment after 2 years not having a wine fair. So we are all excited and looking forward
to see each other again live.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you already mentioned 20 odd years, so that's quite a long time. And so you're very much part of the family. And well, it is still, I mean, it's a big company. Maybe you can shed some light on that later, but it's a family company still. very much.
It is a family company. It started almost by chance, just to make a few bottles, and now they are, as you say, quite large, but still very much run by the family. And especially with each winery having, you know, a very strong individuality in different regions of Italy. So you've got two wineries in Franciacorta, one of them Bellavista, the second one is called Conta di Castaldi. Three wineries in Tuscany, Petra, on the Tuscan coast, opposite the Elba Island, Teruzzi, which is in San Gimignano, specialized in the production of Vernaccia di San Gimignano, of course. There is a beautiful wine resort in the Castiglione della Pescaia in Tuscany. And eventually, Sardinia, we have probably the most historical and you know, representative winery in Sardinia, which is Selle Mosca, you know, established in 1899. So these things just happen really for the passion, for the family, for the wines, you know. It's a fantastic project.
Brought them together in the end.
Yeah.
And when I was mentioning in the beginning, I was talking about Franciacorta and sparkling, and we will talk a little bit about how it is positioned in the world of sparkling wines, I would say, Franciacorta as itself. But maybe you can also shed some light on how Franciacorta as a wine region was started, more or less, and how that was shaped in the past.
Right. In Franciacorta, they've always been making wine since, you know, the year 1000, probably earlier than that. But the phenomenon of Franciacorta that we know today as intended as a sparkling wine started in the 60s, probably for the fact that they were going through a period where the wine wasn't selling as much. And this gentleman called Zigliani had the brilliant idea to try to do some metodo classico, and it was a success from the very beginning. Plus, you need to consider that Franciacorta is populated by, you know, quite in those days they were quite wealthy people, so everyone had the power and the energy to invest into project and sustain this project, and it became, well, in Italy, an amazing phenomenon, because in Italy we drink 80% of the total production. So that's why, you know, there's no many people outside of Italy knowing about Franciacorta, unless you are, you know, in the business. In the business, yeah. I'm talking about, you know, final consumers that hopefully they are listening to us tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's growing, but you can tell us more about that because you're also in the export business, and I do think that there is a place, certainly there is a place for Franciacorta wines.
Yeah.
If you look at, compare it to Champagne, and then in Italy, for example, Prosecco. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you would see Franciacorta and also then Bellavista, if you compare it to the other sparkling wines. Every wine is different, obviously, but yeah. I think there is some characteristics that stand out for Franciacorta.
Well, I wouldn't know really how to compare it to the one that you mentioned, Prosecco, because it's completely different method of production, grape varieties or whatever. I would more rather compare it to other traditional methods around Europe, probably. But my perception, but also when you taste the wine, you know, we have a strong Mediterranean influence that really changes the whole game in the glass. So yes, we're using the same grape varieties, you know, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. Okay, we have Pinot Blanc in very small percentage, but eventually the difference is the style. The style makes a huge difference. Absolutely. I'm sure that. I don't know, without going maybe too much in technicality, but, you know, if we pick a grape when it's 11.5% potential alcohol in Franciacorta, and you pick it at the same stage in Germany, for example, you know, the rest of the data that we have is very different. You know, the acidity, the aromaticity is very different.
The development of the grapes, the whole cycle is not comparable.
Exactly. So that's due to the fact to where we are. We are influenced by the Mediterranean Sea. We are in a warm country, so we need to be careful to maintain the freshness of the wine. That's that's the key thing. Sometimes the best vintage in Franciacorta are actually the tricky vintages. When you have a little bit more rain, low temperatures, or it's a really different way of working. But eventually, you have such an elegance, in your mouth, an aromaticity.
I think you're right, and the reason why I was mentioning Prosecco is because it's not Metodo Classico, of course, but if you talk about sparkling wine in Italy, this is obviously the well-known example of sparkling wine, although the method is different, but in the end, it's the volume that caught up in the market that say, put imagination of sparkling in Italian sparkling in the world.
Well, I think because you mentioned the volume, I think we need to give some numbers here. Prosecco, I think last year they did over 700 million bottles, right? In Franciacorta, last year I think we did 18 million bottles. 18 million bottles?
Yeah.
18.
Yeah. So that's...
It's half of the total production of Moët Chandon.
Yeah.
And we are 120 producers.
And that's your whole Franciacorta, yeah.
All Franciacorta is absolutely shocking. If you consider that we drink 80% of it at home, you've got...
How many bottles go to outside of Italy? Yeah?
Exactly. How many bottles have you got in Netherlands or, in UK or whatever? It's a handful. It's a handful.
Yeah.
So in a way, let's keep it that way. But we are. Of course,
I think it's good that you're mentioning these numbers for people to get an idea. It's always difficult to compare. Maybe I'm not doing it right by doing so, but I rather see it as an alternative for champagne, just also because of the production method, but also because I think the quality level. I think the quality that you guys, not only Bellavista, but the whole Franciacorta producers are putting into the wines. I think that really is leaning more towards that. And then if you look at the price level. I'm always still very much surprised that for the price that you guys, for example, produce your top wines, it's impossible to get a really good champagne, because even if you buy an average champagne, then it's average, but in terms of price, there is no comparison.
Well, yes. I take that as a huge compliment, obviously.
I mean that's what I mean as well. I mean, it's not that I'm saying that you guys are putting a low price on it, but
because I would like to highlight the details of what you said. Yeah, I mean, we might have the same prices of a basic champagne, but if you compare the quality, and you want to have a quality in a champagne that you have, for example, in Bellavista.
You pay way more.
Exactly. The price is a big difference, yes.
That's what I like about it. I mean, then when people are looking for sparkling wine, I always suggest something like this, because you're getting way more for your money. That's just the fact of what it is in the end. We talked already a little bit about the history. Today also we're going to do a small tasting halfway down the show, so then we are going to enjoy the Alma. Before we go into the history of the winery, can you tell us a little bit more about Franciacorta in terms of where it's situated, for those the people that don't know, so to give it a little bit more place on the map?
Sure. So we are in Lombardia, which is the capital of Lombardia is Milan. Yeah, so we are in the center, on the northern part of Italy, and we are about an hour east from Milan. We are in the Lake District of Italy, close to Iseo Lake. And to give you an idea, if I'm standing at the bottom of the Iseo Lake and I look north, I've got all the Alps in front of me, right? Like a wall, literally. And if I look south, I've got the flat area, the biggest flat area of Italy, In a very clear day, you can almost see all the way to Bologna. So that's why we're so exposed to the Mediterranean influence. And we are in a Mediterranean climate. There are olive trees where we are. Maybe not in all exposition, but that's...
It doesn't really get cold in the winter there. Well, it depends on what you think is cold. For us,
It
it's not
does.
cold
It
at all.
does because when it comes down from east or from the Alps, it can be very cold. When I was a kid, it wasn't unusual to go below 10 degrees. But the thing is, we are on the Iseo Lake, and that helps to mitigate this temperature. Not much about winter, because in winter the plant is at rest. There's not a massive problem. The problems could be like, for example, vintage 2017, for example, we had the massive frost on I think it was the 8th of April.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all the vineyard on the flat were like
Devastated.
no production, or maybe 20% production. Literally ridiculous. But as soon as you go on a slope, okay, no problems whatsoever. So vintage 17, fantastic, but very little production. Okay,
So the ones that survived due to how they were situated, those are the ones that turned out to be great wines as well.
Exactly.
But low yields.
So Franciacorta is characterized by these hills called morainics. So they've been formed by a glacier that, during the glacial era came down from the Alps, pushing down like a big wave material from the Alps. Yeah? So when he melted and he retracted, he left this wave of material, hills, 150 to 100 meters above sea level, and Iseo Lake. So this is the
lake
main...
is the result in the end of the glaciers that were there.
And you find the same situation at the bottom of Lake Garda that is being formed exactly the same way. Yeah, the Lugana area, just to speak about wines. But also in Franciacorta there is a mixture of other soil. For example, of hills that were formed by tectonic origins. Yeah, so by the Italy pushing against the European continent.
Yeah,
so
the rubbing of the mountain ridges.
Exactly. So this one, there are much older soils, a different origin, and that gives you a different result if you are lucky enough to have a vineyard on these levels. Trickily enough, in Franciacorta, by law, you cannot plant a vineyard above 500 meters above sea level, because by doing so, I think it would change probably the style of what the wines of Franciacorta should be. Yeah, so you lose the Mediterranean color.
One way to protect that.
Exactly. So by having all these hills and in different exposition, you can. It depends how you work. The way we work, we try to have the vineyard all over the places.
Mm-hmm.
So, you might have a northern exposition, a southern vineyard in altitude, a different training system. Maybe is an old vineyard that Mr. Moretti bought when, in those days. So what we're trying
as much
to
as
do,
variety as you can get.
Exactly. The aim is to produce as many single ingredients as possible that then we go and mix for the cuvée. For the creation of cuvée, that's the
and that's what I like, to be honest. Today we're talking about Alma, and I had some others as well, which I'm just going to show to the people right now, just for shows, because we're not going to drink them today.
Oh, no, non dosato. Yeah,
we have the Don Dosato, which I didn't try yet, so I had a few of you guys. This is the last one I think I have to try, but this is a really nice one. Yeah. And of course, we also have this one. The rosé.
Alma rosé.
Yeah. So excellent. This is what you produce as well. And this is what I wanted to get to. This.
Well, now you're starting to get to one of my favors.
So that was a little bit about, you were talking about the diversity and the variety of all these vineyards. And now we're talking obviously about cuvées. And so all these plots, and maybe we should first go into the history of the winery, but correct me if that's better. But all these plots, they allow you to make diversity in the wines. So how does that play out in the different Franciacorta wines that you're making?
Well, we have about 200 hectares at the moment. Yeah, that's the size of the company, and always strategically, the vineyards were either purchased for where they were, because maybe they were all existing vineyard that were there, or planted in different municipality of Franciacorta. You've got about 19 villages. Okay, we've got vineyards in 12 different villages.
Yeah,
some of them
they belong to the DOCG. So
DOCG. Yeah.
So all these villages, these are the ones that make up the DOCG.
Exactly. Consider that is a very small territory. I think there are 230 square kilometers.
Okay, that's
there is a motorway on them from Milan to Venice. There is a motorway cutting through Franciacorta. If you blink, you miss it.
Yeah.
It will take you 5 minutes to cross Franciacorta, just to tell you how small it is. Okay, but I always, think there are many ways of making wine. It depends how much you want to complicate your life. Okay, that is what makes the difference.
If you like it to be simple and you prefer to be simple,
If
you want complex life, it's also possible.
Exactly. If you want a simple life, you get Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, you mix it together, you go into the bottle, 18 months in the bottle, and off you go on the market. If you want your life to be more interesting but very difficult, with about 100 vineyards, you make 150 different wines. Okay, so that means in one vineyard you make 2 or 3 different wines. We keep all the selections separated. Yeah. So when you have so much choice, it's easier in a wine. We will tell later when we taste this wine to replicate your style. And to be your really exactly your signature, but also, as simple as that, in Franciacorta, it hails very often every year. So if you have all the vineyards around your winery and it hails there, you're finished.
Yeah, so you need to sort of spread your risk as well.
Exactly. So, but having said that, when it's time to go and pick all those vineyards, is a complete logistic nightmare, because we need 400 people, okay? And these 400 people, they are shuttled from one side to the other side of Franciacorta, following the maturation curve dictated by the winemaker, okay? So he sends you in the other side of Franciacorta and say, right, you pick the bottom left of the vineyard, leave all the rest of it. Leave all the rest of it. Yeah. So he picks it up, and then they've been shuffled for the other side of Franciacorta to pick something else. Maybe they go back to the very first one 2 or 3 days later, because in the upper part, there is a different maturation level. It's mental. It's
so a lot of planning involved in that.
A lot of planning and organization also, because the quicker you deal with these grapes, the more you maintain the fresh sensation of your wine.
Speed.
Eventually, yeah. If you think about it, 200 hectares in a very normal year, you can probably get away with 2 or 3 weeks, of picking. Yeah. Unusually you go like a 4 or 5. Like 2020 was a bit crazy. So, yeah. The weather can help as well, because we decide not to irrigate, for example. We don't irrigate. Even in desperate situation like 2017, the consortium allowed us to use irrigation. We decided not to. But normally, because where we are, with the hot weather coming up from the south, clashing with the cool air of the Alps, you generally generate some, storms. And so
that's just what happens. Yeah, it's
exactly.
The pressure of the
But
a lot of people don't realize that you have this complexity, and that you all vinifigate it separately. So that it's like if you go into the cellar, that's like, well, not 1, not 10, not 100.
No, we got more than 100 tanks. They're very quite small, tiny, high, quite tall. Sorry, okay, because each must, before the fermentation, they just also, you use the force of gravity to have the first clearance of your must before you get into fermentation. It's very important.
Yeah. Okay, so then it's clear why you guys have all this diversity and why you choose to have that, and also what it brings you. And then obviously we talk about, okay, all these plots are being vinified separately, and then in the end there's the blending process, and there's also the different bottles in the lineup that you have. So how does that work? How do you decide? And yeah, what do you have in terms of portfolio? So maybe we can make a bridge to that part of.
Well, let me tell you first. Maybe the sort of a time scales of the harvest. You pick the grapes in August, usually the second part of August, and sometime you continue early in September. You come in, you press the grapes, you do several, usually 3 presses, the best, the second, the third one, and they go into 3 separate things. 45% of the total production of Bellavista ferments in oak, which, if you think about it, is very unusual for a sparkling wine production. So that's why our style is described to be so traditional. And the rest is fermented in stainless steel. Okay, you leave it there for 6 months, more or less. So the barrique and the stainless steel, they will have their, their maturation all the way to April. In April, the winemaker, imagine to be in his set of mind on a Monday morning, he has to go into the laboratory, taste 150 different wines, and mix them, thinking about the wines that he needs to make. For example,
you have to keep them in your head all the time.
Exactly. Here is actually really quite important, but also romantic, because the family is very much involved in this. So the winemaker prepares 3 samples of each style of the wines, and so there is this sort of a secret
congregation coming together.
Family congregation, a secret tasted. Nobody's allowed in. It's just
the doors get closed.
Absolutely. So there is a Mrs. Moretti, Mr. Moretti, Francesca Moretti. The winemaker is a fantastic thing to watch, and they choose which of the 3 samples is the most like to be the next Alma Grand Cuvée, Rosé, and whatever. So this is what we do. And then, sorry, I got lost a minute. What question did you ask me?
I think we already answered like half of that question. The other half would be, okay, now you have your lineup, because I showed the people some bottles,
the lineup.
But maybe what do we have exactly in terms of different?
The lineup is, first of all, I don't think it's fair enough to say that Bellavista has an entry-level wines, a middle wine, and a top wine. I think Bellavista has different wines that represent different styles. First of all, we have the Alma family. So tonight we're going to have one of those. Actually, we've seen them all. Alma, the orange label, Alma Grand Cuvée, Bellavista Alma Non Dosato, and Bellavista Alma Rosé. The 3 wines are non-vintage. Okay. The first one is a Brut, where the other 2, the Non Dosato and the Rosé, are with no dosage.
So this is the Brut, the one we're going to taste tonight.
Exactly.
The Non Dosato, I think you mentioned as the second.
Exactly, Non Dosato, that's 90% Chardonnay and 10% Pinot Noir.
And the Rosé.
And the Rosé.
I think it's clear what is the main component of the Rosé.
Well, you'll be surprised, but the dominant variety is still Chardonnay with 65%, and the rest is Pinot Noir.
Okay, but 65% Chardonnay. That's rather high,
Yeah.
And then, but this one we go into the vintage. This is not
exactly. Then you go into the vintage wine. This is called Bellavista Brut Teatro alla Scala, because this is the wine that we produce for the Teatro alla Scala, but also is available to our best customers. At the moment, we are on the market with 2016, because all our wine spends a very long time on the list. After that, we have this Satin. Satin in Franciacorta, you can say, is the equivalent of Blanc de Blanc in Champagne. Okay, so it's only made with wide variety. Wide variety. Some people choose. Yeah, you can choose up to 50% Pinot Blanc. We only use Chardonnay. Our vineyard, we have one single vineyard of Pinot Noir, Pinot Blanc, that ends up in Alma, the one that we taste tonight. Otherwise, 85% Chardonnay.
Okay.
What else have we got? We got the Rosé, of course, Rosé Vintage. Rosé Vintage. We are just about actually to come out with the 2017. Again, 65 Chardonnay, 35 Pinot Noir, but this is a vintage. Just a quick mention about Rosé in Franciacorta. The color of the Rosé in Franciacorta, you have to allow the skins of the Pinot Noir to bleed the color. Yeah, you need to do the maceration. You can't add red wine to white wine. Okay,
that's the only allowed way to do it.
By law. This is by law. Also, we have the Bellavista Paso-Perret. Paso-Perret is 65 Chardonnay, 35 Pinot Noir, 6 years on the list, but this is an extra brut. So it's got, less than 3 gram sugar residue. It's a wine that, will live a long time.
Yeah.
A long time. The more you leave it, the more it is actually developing an amazing complexity. After that, we have the Riserva Vittorio Moretti.
Yeah, but the one and this one plus the other one you just mentioned, they're not in the Alma group, Alma lineup anymore. And now we stopped the Alma lineup there.
Alma line is only the first 3 ones. Yeah, Alma Grand Cuvée, Alma Non Dosato, Alma Rosé.
Yeah.
Then we started with the vintage wines. Okay.
So the ones you just mentioned, yeah.
Exactly. And now the Riserva. Riserva is called Riserva Vittorio Moretti. We are on the market with 2013 because it spent 7 years on the list. But this is a wine that is only made in exceptional vintages. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to tell you how serious the project of Vittorio Moretti Riserva is, in the first 20 years of existence of Bellavista, it was made 4 times.
Okay. 4
out
of 20 years.
Yeah. So, but we're still doing it. 13 was the last one, and the next one I think will be 16. Okay. There is also a special cuvée available. It's called Meraviglioso. And Meraviglioso is a blend of different Riserva Vittorio Moretti. Okay.
For Moretti's.
Right. So instead of using all the wine, we kept some big sizes of each vintage aside, just because, we've not been there for centuries. So we need to do this research. We need to understand what happens to the wine. Anyway, we decided eventually to mix 84, 88, 91, 95, 2001, 2002. 6 vintages together in magnums only. Mm-hmm. We left it for 12 years on the lease. Okay, and then eventually I was told that Mr. Moretti sat down in the laboratory with the winemaker, and the winemaker said, I think this wine should stay a little longer on the lease. And Mr. Moretti, who's 81 this year, well, that was only a few years ago. He said, I don't think so. I think, it's time to drink it because I wanted to drink a few bottles. So
I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. So eventually it was the gorge, and only 3,000 bottles, magnums were produced of it.
Okay.
We also produce
special, extra special.
Yeah, very, very special. We also make a demi-sec. Mm-hmm. Demi-sec, but it's very particular. It's 100% Chardonnay, and instead of using the sugar, just adding sugar to it, we leave the grapes on the plant, by damaging connection between the grapes and the plant. So you stop the maturation process, right? So the fresh sensation and the acidity that you had in your grapes remain as it is, but at the same time, by being exposed to the sunshine, you continue to concentrate the sugar, right?
Sugar, yeah.
So, and we use the same must that we found with these grapes for the liqueur.
Nice.
So it's got like a 43 gram sugar residue, but I can tell you, you don't feel it. You don't,
But yeah, you
it's not,
think it's a late harvest, but by the way you're doing it, it's not particularly a late harvest because you disconnect sort of less the grapes in the process.
yeah, exactly. It's a, with particular, even with the foie gras, to start
Yeah.
with, is an incredible wine.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
I have to mention, just because I was there 2 days ago, and it's absolutely incredible. We do 2 amazing Curte Franca.
Yeah.
Curte Franca is a white wine that you make in Franciacorta that is not sparkling. So you cannot call it Franciacorta because it hasn't got any sparkle.
No, because it's not
It's
allowed
called,
regarding the
exactly.
rules.
It's called the other way around in Latin, Curte Franca. Okay, so we
Smart.
do 2 single vineyard. This is by law. So we do 2 single vineyard, 2 Chardonnay 100%. One is exposed northeast, and the other one southeast. All right.
Yeah.
We do just about everything the same: vinification, aging, maybe just a little bit more oak in one place. Anyway, you have this incredible tasting experience of 2 different terroirs, right?
Yeah.
Because everything else is the same. One is really open and quite very fresh because it is facing north, and then the other one it becomes more more with more minerality. But the surprising factor of these wines again is the longevity, which the longevity is one of the key pillars of Bellavista. It has to go on. There is a lot of work to make sure that the wines go on and on and on and on.
Yeah, but it's nice that you also have these 2 single vineyards still wines, because it's sort of less. It's like taking 2 of the ingredients of your Bellavista Franciacortas and just putting them on a stage and letting them shine on their own. Where you're always working with the cuvées, and of course you have this whole philosophy behind that every plot is important. Every plot plays its role, like an orchestra, where every instrument has to play a part. Otherwise, you don't get the music. But then these 2 you highlight, you put them on a stage, and you say, okay, people, if you want to have a very small sample of what we're doing, and you want to go into the depth, then we have this. These are the 2 ways of showing that as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's also interesting because one of these 2 is called Convento della Santissima Annunciata. You can't get more Italian than this.
It was not for my pronunciation.
It's actually a convent, of the 1400 that we, and it's a vineyard, ancient vineyard that we are renting because it's not for sale. But there is this amazing, collaboration between the monks and the Moretti family.
So you're allowed to produce.
We support them, and also we are allowed to use the vineyard. But we found this Chardonnay, old Chardonnay, and we've been using the same clones to reproduce the vineyards that we are using them for the sparkling wine production. Yeah.
So you thought you think they were so particular and interesting that you wanted to clone them?
Well, not necessarily interesting. What it is in an ideal world, as a Bellavista vision for their vineyards, the perfect vineyard for Bellavista will be made on the 3rd generation. So that means that you make a vineyard, you choose those, maybe out of a few 100 plants, you choose the one that looks the more productive, the best resistant to all diseases, etc. With those, you make new plants, you do another vineyard, and then a 3rd one. So after 3 generations, you have a vineyard that has a general characteristic of being more resistant, very productive, and self-sufficient, because when it doesn't rain for 2-3 months, the plant can struggle, So if you have a plant that is nicely trained and is 30 years of age, the root system is well down, and you're more likely to have a constant in your production. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you don't always have the time, 3 generations, to get there. So by doing it this way,
Well, the process is happening. The process is happening. So probably that, Francesca Moretti's kids will benefit eventually of
you
all
always
this
have
process.
to think ahead. It's not just about
Absolutely.
you. It's like collecting and buying the wine. You're not buying it for yourself. You're buying it for your kids. So you put it away, and they are the ones that benefit from it. let's taste some wine while we're talking. We're talking a lot about these. And
I need to open mine.
I already did that, so no noises here. I will tell that first before we go into this one. I had this one before. I think it was my first one that I ever tasted from you guys. And I was instantly in love. So it was my first impression with Bellavista. And then again, later I did a review a few months ago of La Scala. That was the 2015. Now I have the 16 here as well. So this one I reviewed. For the people that wanted to see, they can go to the Instagram and read, because some posts down there is a full review of the La Scala, but the 2015. So this one will come later as well.
I've seen it that you've done it,
yeah. And now, but today, and this one I didn't review, but I had it before. But today we're going to have the Alma. So just to show again for the audience, this is the nice. But they're all in the same style, but the colors are obviously very notable. And orange label, even if people cannot pronounce it, Alma is not a difficult word, but you just say orange label, and then they will know what you mean. And tell us a little bit about the Alma itself before we go into the vintage or into tasting itself.
Right. This is the most important wine Bellavista produces for many different reasons. First of all, because it's the one that he's made in a reasonable quantity. Okay, is the one that is the most popular. Is the one taking around the message of Bellavista. The style of Bellavista is recognizable in this glass.
Yeah,
it's the wine that has to tickle everyone's palate.
Yeah.
So it has to deliver freshness sensation to the person that enjoy the fresh sensation of sparkling wine.
Yeah.
But also, if you find the fussy consumer, that enjoys
they want some complexity.
A little bit of complexity, exactly. This wine is capable to deliver that as well.
Yeah.
It can
which is not easy, because combining freshness with complexity, it's a difficult task.
It's not easy, and also the continuity is not easy. Replicate the style every year, no matter what happened in the vintage. But that's exactly why. When you make a wine like this, you probably use more than 50 different wines to make Alma Grand Cuvée.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got in this particular blend, you've got 88% of Chardonnay.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is Pinot Noir, and there is that 1% of Pinot Blanc. Now, try to see the Chardonnay as the gentle variety.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, some people say the feminine character of the wine. We don't have to be, but everything that is like elegance, softness, roundness, the floral character, the fruity character. This is all delivered by the Chardonnay.
Yeah, friendly.
So, exactly. So by knowing that it's 80% almost Chardonnay, you already know what kind of a sensation you might have. Not only organoleptic taste, but also texture. Yeah. So all this softness and beautiful texture. The Pinot Noir, which is again a very delicate grape variety, but in this case, the Pinot Noir gives you nerves. It gives tension to the wine, and probably contributes more in the structure of the wine, and make it really quite crunchy and lovely again as a texture that supports the softness of the Chardonnay.
Mm-hmm.
This wine spends 4 years on the list. By law in Franciacorta, the minimum amount of time on the list is 18 months.
Okay, 2 years.
This one spent between...
Not 2 years, 1.5 years. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
18 months, 1.5 years. against the 15, for example, in Champagne. Yeah? Whereas this one starts from between 42 and 48 months on the list.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that, you know, any wine can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to do that and to then go on the market with a very youthful wine still, you have to make you need to work a lot on the stability of the wine. The wine needs to be stable. And what Bellavista does, we use 1,700 barriques, okay? But you don't taste oak in here, no, because the average age of these barrels is over 25 years of age. That means that some of the barriques are over 35 years of age, which is insane. The amount of work that goes behind it to keep it clean, to sterilize it, you know, it's just also because they remain empty for 6 months of the year. Yeah,
yeah.
I can't tell you how much work there is behind it. But eventually, the connection between the wine and the oxygen stabilizes the wine. You know, the wines become stronger against oxidation, and that's why it can remain and actually develop better in complexity on the list. But also after that, it will carry on in time for, you know, for a very long time, and it's getting better and better. If you, I challenge, a little challenge for tonight. If you don't drink it all, leave a drop of wine in your glass, okay? Come back to it tomorrow and come back to it again the day after. Mm-hmm. I can guarantee you that the wine will be perfect in terms of organoleptical elements, of course. Yeah, the gas will be gone, of course.
But there's this.
But the wine is in good condition because it's stable. On top of that, because the wine is stable, we go in a bottle with less sulfites. You know, we are in the low category, low sulfites category, because you don't need to. You don't need it, exactly. So even ethically, it's so much better.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So the classic question: what is the difference on the mouth between, you know, this and the more classic territory further north? Well, again, add the sunshine. You know, and so the texture is completely different, because here you got roundness, softness, and sweetness, which is more natural, because here we only have 5 grams of sugar residue. Okay, so it's a dry wine, of course, so that this little sugar is just about enough to adjust the acidity and, you know, to make it more pleasant for those people that look for this style.
Yeah, if you're really not, for instance, a blonde or blonde person, then you will be very happy with this wine. But if you're a blonde or blonde person, you can also stand it, because it still has this, like you said, a big percentage of Chardonnay, but it still has this acidity and the sharpness that keeps the freshness. So both parties will be catered in this cuvée.
Very clean on the nose, on the mouth. And normally Franciacorta are related to sensation, like, you know, white fruit, for example. It can be peach. Sometimes you can get some honey, saffron. You know, it really depends what kind of style of the wine that you taste.
Yeah.
And the more you go towards the Riserva, towards the vintage one, the more you increase the Pinot Noir. Maybe you go on the dried fruit character, you know, on the nuttiness, on the bready, yeasty kind of things that you would expect from a high sort of a level kind of a metodo classico. Yeah,
but these are also the ones that that are also very suitable for aging, and you can just put away. I mean, you guys are doing that, but even if people buy it and they put it away at home and they store it right, then that also keeps on developing on the bottle.
Absolutely, yeah.
With La Scala, you mentioned that when the first moment you encounter the wine, it's the first thing you experience is like there is still so much underneath that can come to the surface in I don't know, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, maybe even longer. I don't know about how long, but it's really there is a deeper layer under there.
Absolutely, yeah. The La Scala spends 5 years on the list, but I tasted, you know, La Scala of 15 years old after release. Man, it's just incredible.
We have a question here, and it's difficult to tell because we already earlier on explained about different vineyards and plots, and there's quite a lot of different ones. But this one's particularly on the soil. If we can comment on this, I don't know if particularly for the Alma, because that might be hard to differentiate between the different ones, and the pH specifically. So how is that? Can you say anything about that?
I can't tell you exactly the value of the pH of the, during the picking season, but what I can say is, when I go back to the example of picking 11.5%, the relation that you have between the acidity and the pH and the alcohol potential level, the more integrated, the more aligned are these three figures, the less you have to do, the less you have to correct your wines.
Yeah. You just let nature do its work there.
Exactly. The less intervention you need to do. That's
and in terms of the soil types, so we talked about the glaciers and the deposits that they had, etc., etc. But anything else you can say on that? Maybe that also depends very much on all the different plots. But
yeah. Well, the tectonic soil is definitely more calcareous, especially to the top. To the higher part. At the bottom part, you have some clay. And again, you might have to consider to have two different pickings time according to the vintage. If you have a dry vintage, you might have more quality on the clay because you have more water. Yeah, where the vast majority of the of Franciacorta, they're just debris coming down from the Alps, so it's quite sandy. It's quite sandy and stony. The soil drain very well, sometimes even too much, so there's no accumulation of water. That's why important is to have water again. And that's why it's important to continue to work your vineyards. That means that scraping between the roses. So when it rains, you try to collect as much as possible. The more you move the soil, the more you're likely to collect every drop of water that come down. Yeah. We use a lot of natural manure, for example, after the vineyard.
Because you already mentioned also that irrigation is something that normally isn't done. I mean, it's just like what nature gives you, that's what you deal with.
Yeah, it's only allowed in extreme situation, So we use a lot of manure in the vineyard, but also we mince all the pruning. We mince them and we put them back into the vineyard as a compost, like natural compost.
I think, as mentioned before, I think this is a great wine. I think everybody will be surprised by this. And no matter which side of the spectrum your taste goes, I think this is a sparkling that will please everybody. We had it at a Christmas table, and I had no complaints whatsoever. But there are some very particular people that said, "Okay, I'm more like a dry person," and are also like a more fruity, full person. But that worked for everybody. So if somebody wants to start with your,
I'm losing you a bit. I think.
Okay. Can you still hear me now, or? I think it will get better. I see that you're still there.
I think I'm losing you.
That's wait.
No, you're there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a sip and see if the connection improves with a minute. Good. So you can hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. We were saying that this caters to a lot of different...
We eat with these wines. We drink Prosecco. We drink 80% of the Franciacorta. We are the 5th, I think, biggest consumer of champagne in the world. But that's because Italians also like to eat with sparkling wines. It's such a pleasant thing to do because it's so easy to pair a sparkling wine. You can virtually have it with anything. Absolutely.
And that's the difference with Dutch people, for instance. And maybe you know a little bit more about that because you're also into export. But in Holland, it's still very much custom to celebrate something with a sparkling wine. I see we're losing the connection here, so let's see if it builds up again in a minute for everybody who's watching. In the meanwhile, if people that are watching have a question, we're about to round up in about 5 minutes. But you can put your questions in the question mark box, or just put them in, type them in the chat. And while Ettore is trying to connect again with us, we'll handle the questions that are at hand. So today we talked about Bellavista, Franciacorta, and this one in particular, the Bellavista Alma. This one we tasted, and I'm just going to try to see if I can get Ettore back in the show. Let's see. Yes, so we got a connection back.
Yes.
Yeah. I was just doing a small intermezzo and talking about what we tasted and asking the people if they have some questions, as we're also nearing the end of our hour together, which was very pleasant. Not only because of the great wine, but also because of the nice company. Before I go into questions, and I already asked people if they have some, they can put them in there. Okay, tell us a little bit about availability, because you did mention a lot of it stays in Italy or gets consumed in Italy. Some of it also goes abroad, otherwise you would not have a job, or maybe you had another job with the company probably, but not export. So what are your focus? What's your focus on the export?
Niels, if I have to be very honest, just half an hour before your connection, I have to turn down 3,000 bottles request from a UK customer because there's not much wine available. So, in a way, it's good news because the company is doing well, but not only the company, the territory is doing well. Franciacorta has more and more and more recognition. For the last 10 years, I've been hearing, oh, maybe this year is the Franciacorta year. Maybe this year is the Franciacorta.
Oh, it's already building up every year.
Yeah, I think, it's slowly it's happening. We're getting more and more recognition, but it remains a niche, which is lovely. So, and, we need to keep doing what we're doing. I don't think it's a good idea to stretch to accommodate just the demand or the market. Yeah. We're following our philosophy and we're doing what we're doing. So, yeah, the more demand there is, the more quality.
Which are the countries that are important for you as an export manager?
Say it again, sorry.
Which are the countries that are most important for you as an export manager?
UK is a good satisfaction because over here, as you can imagine, champagne is on everyone's mouth.
Yeah.
Champagne was probably created by the British, so it's really, really hard to penetrate, this very conservatory mentality and country. Also because maybe the Italian restaurateurs over here have not developed as they did in the rest of, like in Netherlands, for example, or in Belgium, in Denmark, in Norway. I mean, the Italian cuisine is really exciting in this country, in those countries. But I feel UK is, again, too much traditional and conservatory. But it's really important to be here, and, especially in London. Belgium, again, great satisfaction because we are 2 hours driving away from Champagne, and Belgium is actually one of our best markets.
Also a lot of big champagne consumer.
Exactly, but people are open-minded. They are willing to try new things, and we are building a strong name now especially with Bellavista. It's a bit tricky in the Norwegian countries.
Yeah.
Norway is doing very well, but because we have a great importer that has been doing this job for the last 20 years, so it is starting to pick up the fruit now. So.
And anything out of Europe, or is it just limited for now, mainly to Europe?
No. Out of Europe, for every Franciacorta producers, Japan is probably one of the most important markets. Okay. Japan, I don't know for what reason. Maybe because it goes very well with the cuisine. Maybe because they are open market. Followed by Switzerland, of course, because we are next door to Switzerland. Yeah.
Easy.
And every time I come to Netherlands, especially people in the business, they keep saying, "Oh, no, the Dutch don't drink very much sparkling wine." But it's not very true, because we are growing very well. Vinites is doing a great job for us. So
I think you guys, the Dutch have a history of just opening up a bottle of sparkling when there's something to celebrate, and we also have a history of not celebrating so much. So that's where that comes from, but that's changing for sure. And just to give you guys just a little bit of an idea, maybe some people saw it, but I have on top of this one here now the Coravin Sparkling. So I opened this up last weekend, so almost a week ago now, and I'm going to do with Coravin, I'm going to do some testing. So I chose the Bellavista wines to see what's going to happen with this preservation system. I think it's really also a great thing, not just for you guys, but for the adoption of sparkling wines, and also champagne and other high-end sparkling wines in restaurants, because this allows you to do your food pairing with multiple different bottles. And if you talk about all the great Bellavistas that you have, the restaurant could say, okay, I'm going to have an 8-course menu. I'm just going to open up these different ones. I'm just let everybody experience a little bit. For you, it would actually, now thinking about it, it's great, because with all these small plots and all these different cuvées, that's really interesting. So also we're going to test that. But what I also wanted to mention is that I know that I think Vinites is to blame for that, is that last week at the Gomio announcements for the restaurants in Holland, they gave away the prizes, and they were pouring Bellavista there. And a lot of people, they were also pouring champagne. I'm not going to say which one, but a lot of people really were fond of the Bellavista and preferred it over the champagne. So these are restaurants at the top of the Netherlands. So I think you're doing a good job there. And I was already convinced that this is a great, I wouldn't say alternative, because you're saying it would mean it would be less, and it's not. But I think it's a great battle between champagne and Bellavista. Yeah.
Well, what happened with the Vinites, I think, is similar to what happened in Norway. Yeah. They both started the business many years ago, and they both started with probably Bellavista with being one of the first wines they chose to import. Yeah. But because Bellavista was already a name in Italy, I mean, I don't want to stress too much, because I don't want to feel like
you've been there for 20 years, so you're part of
exactly. But Bellavista in Italy is an institution. When somebody comes home with a bottle of Bellavista, you don't say, "All right, thanks." You just say, "Oh my God, what are we celebrating?" Yeah. It's a bit of he's on the bit of a special side. Yeah, I have to say. It is an honor to work for them and to talk about it. I don't have to lie here. It's just
but I can imagine.
It's just clear as it is. And you need to go and see it to understand what we do. It's just mind blowing.
I totally get that. So wrapping it up, I did have another question for you when it comes to new projects or new Bellavista wines. Is there anything that will be coming up, because you already have a rather broad range and portfolio, but do you expect any new things to come up?
No, I really don't think so. Simply because we just came up with we extended the Alma family from Alma Grand Cuvée. From Alma Grand Cuvée in the last 3 to 4 years. Slowly we introduced the new brothers and sisters, the Alma non dosato and the Alma Rosé non vintage. These were made by according to Francesca Moretti's palate, who appreciate more, the wines on the drier side. They've been a great success. We were worried at the beginning, because this is such an institution, I would say, in Italy. So we were worried to introduce 2 new lines, but they did very well. So following that, to be honest, I really don't think that there are.
No, I think you already made some good moves for the future to develop your portfolio.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think
maybe also to mention, because you were mentioning Francesca and well, the start of the company, but if I'm correct, recently she took over leadership of the company as well. So for the people that are tuning in later, Francesca is now leading, more or less leading the company.
Well, Francesca is, first of all, she's the president of Terra Moretti Vino, so the 6 wineries
group.
That she lives on the Bellavista Hill. She was born there. So she's breathing Bellavista, and she's actually managing the technical team of Bellavista. So she's very much involved.
Very much involved in the signature of all the wines and everything.
Absolutely, yeah. And
I wanted to round it up with that because it shows again, although big, still family company and still very much close to what it started with. And the only thing that changed over time is the amount of bottles that you guys are producing due to success. And I think it's a great thing, and a lot of people probably already heard about Bellavista Franciacorta. If they didn't, and they're just hearing for the first time tonight, I can only encourage to try a bottle, because I'm sure that you will not be disappointed. And I do believe that, like you said, there is a trend already being set up of Bellavista and Franciacorta wines picking up in the world, the higher segment of sparkling wines. Last question from my side. And I already warned you up front, but next week, no, not next week, in 2 weeks, we're going to have episode number 2. So for the people that are watching, in 2 weeks, we have a break next week. In 2 weeks, we're going to go to Austria. So a little bit more up north, but still rather close to where you guys are situated. But we're going to go to the Wachau region, and we're going to talk about, amongst other things, about Grüne Veltliner with Weingut Alzinger. And I wanted to ask you, okay, do you have a question for the Alzinger family? And what are you curious about?
For the next producer.
Yeah.
I was with the Bellavista technical team, as I said, 3 days ago. And during the tasting, they said they had to adapt to the climate change, yeah? And by reading the data they were collecting 10, 15 years ago, there was a year this wine had 11 grams sugar residue, right?
So now the
Alma Grand Cuvée, now it's got 5. But not because we changed the style of the wines, but because they had to maintain the style of the wine. So
it's the only way to do it.
Exactly. So we had to adjust what we were doing to maintain the style. So I was just wondering, for a Grüne Veltliner or for whatever they do, where they are, what did they have to do? Because here we have a style, I don't believe they produce, sparkling wine. So, in the still wine, what is the biggest challenge I had to do to adapt and maintain?
It's always more notable because you have not much room to play. In the end, it's difficult for you guys as well, but you have ingredients where you can go left, right, a little bit more or less. But
maybe they had to adapt in the vineyard, change something that they were doing in the vineyard. Maybe the yield, the picking time.
Maybe they say, okay, we don't care about the signature. We really let the vintage do its work, and then it means that every year, you will have differences. But I mean, we're trying to express the characteristics of the vintage and through the wine. I mean, that would also be an option. But let's see what they come up with. I'm going to ask them the question.
So that'd be interesting.
Thank you. I want to thank you very much. I don't have any more questions. We're a little bit over time, but that was a nice chat. So that was really worth our time, my time at least. And I hope you had a good time as well. Just to show for the people once more, tonight we were talking about the Alma from Bellavista and all the other Bellavista wines. Yes, that great one. And the review will also be posted later, so you can follow that and find it back on Instagram. And I wanted to, maybe you have a final question or words to the people or to me, Ettore. Because I drink more Bellavista, obviously.
No, I just want to thank everyone, that has been listening to us. I think we delivered a good message. I think, I don't know, I wasn't overly enthusiastic because that's something I tend to do, but I love the product and, so.
No, I think you're a great ambassador, but you're also being very realistic still about and modest and honest about what is, and maybe a little bit, sometimes a little bit too much, because I think you really have something here, and I do think we come back to what we talked about at the beginning about sparkling wines and where in the world of sparkling wines you are situated. I think there's a lot of people that are missing out if they have not tried yet. Bellavista Franciacorta wine. So I'm sure when they will buy a bottle like this and they will pay whatever the price is in your country or at your retail, but if you pay 30 or 35 euros or something like that for the Alma, I think you will be very pleasantly surprised, and you will not easily go back to a champagne, certainly not for that price. So thank you again very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Wishing you a great evening. We're going to enjoy the rest of the bottle, and stay tuned for the review. And for the people that are watching, in 2 weeks we will be back, and then we will go into Austria, and we will talk about the Dachau region, or the Wachau region, sorry, and we're going to talk with Weingut Alzinger. So thank you, and enjoy your evening and have a good weekend.
Thank you for having me. Have a lovely weekend.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye. Thanks everybody for watching.